Have you ever wondered why some babies leave before they even live? Why life begins and ends so quickly? It's one of the most painful and mysterious questions the human soul can ask. There's something deeply moving about seeing a life that barely arrived on Earth and already returns to the spirit world. Many parents, faced with this loss, feel the ground disappear beneath their feet. They seek answers in medicine, in faith, in silence. And yet their hearts continue to ask, why? What meaning is there in such a brief life? For those who believe in the continuity of life and the laws of reincarnation, these questions resonate on an even deeper level. If each birth is a divine act, if each soul reincarnates with a defined purpose, then what does it mean when that purpose seems interrupted before it even begins? Emmanuel, the spirit who guided Chico Xavier in so many messages of light, left revelations on this subject that touch the most intimate part of the soul. Revelations that speak of love, learning, and a spiritual plane far greater than we can comprehend. What you're about to discover may surprise you. Emmanuel didn't see the death of a baby as punishment or injustice. For him, each reincarnation, however short, is an opportunity for redemption and healing. Sometimes the spirit comes only to complete a small cycle, a quick reunion with loved ones, a silent gesture of reconciliation, or the completion of a lesson left unfinished in previous lives. And when this mission is accomplished, the spirit returns to the spiritual plane enveloped in love and peace, leaving behind a trail of transformation in those who remained. But for those who experience this pain here on Earth, understanding it isn't easy. The void left behind is real. The questions remain. And it is in this space between pain and faith that Emmanuel's words gain strength. He reminds us that no birth happens by chance, and that no premature return is a waste of time. Each spirit carries within itself a millennia-old story, and sometimes the simple act of breathing Earth's air for a few moments is enough to complete a cycle of evolution. Have you ever experienced this, or do you know someone who has? If so, perhaps this video will offer a new perspective on something that seemed impossible to understand. Because Emmanuel doesn't just talk about death, he talks about continuity, reunion, and the certainty that true love never fades. Even in the face of physical separation, imagine, for a moment, that the baby who left so soon wasn't gone in vain, that he fulfilled his purpose, that he brought an invisible lesson, perhaps an awakening of faith, a bond of unity, a silent reminder that there is something beyond matter. Emmanuel said that life is not measured in years, but in experiences of the soul. And sometimes the shortest passage carries the most profound message. Stay with me until the end, because in the following words you will understand what Emmanuel truly revealed about these spirits and how the spiritual realm welcomes them with tenderness and purpose. What follows may completely change the way you view life, death, and the eternal bonds that unite parents and children, even beyond time and the physical. Have you ever stopped to think that? In the spiritual realm, nothing happens by chance? That even the briefest life, the quickest birth, the cry that echoes for just a few seconds, can carry a profound and eternal meaning. Emmanuel, the wise spirit who guided Chico Xavier for so many decades, revealed that each existence, even the one that seems interrupted, is part of a greater plan, carefully traced by the divine laws of reincarnation. And that's what we're going to talk about now. Stay with me until the end, because what you'll discover could transform the way you understand life, death, and the soul's true purpose. According to Emmanuel, no birth is accidental. No soul arrives on Earth by mistake. Each spirit, before reincarnating, undergoes meticulous preparation, surrounded by spiritual mentors and guides who help them choose the path necessary for their progress. When a baby is born and then passes away soon after, to human eyes, it seems an incomprehensible tragedy. But from a spiritual perspective, it is a meaningful event, enveloped in mercy and learning. The parent's pain, the impact of loss, the love that awakens and endures even without coexistence, all of this is part of a plan of readjustment and reconciliation between souls who already know each other from other lives. Emmanuel teaches us that many of these little lives represent reunions. Spirits who, in past incarnations, experience situations of abandonment, suffering, or guilt, Return for brief moments just to feel welcome, love, touch, and the opportunity to be desired. It's as if this brief contact with the physical body is enough to dissolve old pain and free bonds of imbalance. Sometimes, this baby comes to teach unconditional love. Other times, to awaken in the parents a new understanding of the value of life and faith. Have you ever experienced this or know someone who has faced such a loss? When the pain becomes unbearable, it's natural to ask, why would God allow something so cruel? But Emmanuel, with his serene wisdom, reminds us that God doesn't punish, he educates. Each experience, however painful it may seem, is a lesson carefully tailored to the needs of each soul involved. The spirit who departs early is not being punished, nor is it being denied life. It is simply completing a cycle, sometimes very short, but profoundly transformative, before continuing its spiritual journey on more subtle planes. What you'll discover now may surprise you. Emmanuel explains that the baby's soul doesn't suffer. It is welcomed into the spiritual realm with tenderness, warmth, and love. Spiritual mentors and family members await its arrival with affection, explaining that the brief contact with the material world has already fulfilled its necessary purpose. The spirit returns strengthened, purified, and ready to continue its evolution. And the parents, though immersed in longing, receive spiritual blessings from this encounter. Often without realizing it, no tear is wasted. No love is in vain. Emmanuel teaches that the bond between parents and children is eternal, and that these bonds are rediscovered in other existences, in new bodies, under new circumstances. Therefore, the birth and departure of a baby should not be seen as an end, but as a temporary pause in a love story that will continue at another time under divine supervision. Every life, no matter how short, has a greater purpose. And when we look through the eyes of spirituality, we understand that time here on earth is just a detail. True learning lies in the soul, which never stops growing, loving, and rediscovering. Stay with me, because in the next few words you will understand what happens when this spirit returns to the spiritual plane. What Emmanuel revealed about this welcoming process, and what are the deeper reasons behind these brief and mysterious passages. Have you ever imagined that a soul could give up on being born? That even after all the spiritual preparation for reincarnation, it could simply recoil from the impact of material life? This idea may seem strange at first glance, but according to Emmanuel, the wise spirit who guided Chico Xavier, this phenomenon is more common than we imagine and carries profound lessons about the purpose of life, the strength of the soul, and the divine love that surrounds us in every experience. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover now could completely change the way you understand birth, death, and the process of reincarnation. Emmanuel reveals that, in some cases, the reincarnating spirit feels the weight of the new existence even before arriving on earth. They perceive the challenge that awaits them, the trials, the readjustments, the intense emotions they will need to face, and, overcome by fear or insecurity, decide to interrupt the process. This spiritual withdrawal can occur in the early stages of gestation, when the body is still forming and the connection between spirit and matter is delicate. It is a moment of extreme sensitivity, both for the one arriving and for those who await them with love and expectation. But Emmanuel teaches us something essential. There is no guilt or punishment in this process. The spirit does not make a mistake by giving up. It simply realizes it is not yet ready. Reincarnation is an act of courage, and not all souls can immediately bear the weight of plunging back into the density of the material world. When this happens, the spiritual mentors, always compassionate and patient, welcome the soul back, explaining that the opportunity has not been lost, has simply been postponed. Have you ever experienced a pregnancy loss? Or do you know someone who has? Perhaps this explanation will bring new perspective to what seemed like a senseless tragedy. Emmanuel describes how the spirit who returns to the spiritual plane after retreating is welcomed with love and learning. They are guided, strengthened, and prepared to try again in due time, when they are more mature and ready to face the experiences that await them on earth. What you're about to discover may surprise you even more. Emmanuel reveals that often This same spirit returns to the same parents in another pregnancy at another time. The bond isn't broken. On the contrary, it grows stronger. The love that was generated, the bond that was formed, doesn't disappear with the loss. It's preserved in the spiritual realm, awaiting reunion in divine timing. And that's why so many mothers report a sense of familiarity when they have another child, as if the departed baby has returned in a new body. The spiritual perspective of this phenomenon brings comfort and hope. Emmanuel explains that nothing is lost in God's ways. Everything is a learning experience. Everything is growth. The spirit that retreats learns from experience. Parents who face the pain of loss develop faith, empathy, and inner strength. Even the most silent pain can be a bridge to evolution for all involved. Suffering, when viewed through a spiritual lens, ceases to be punishment and becomes an instrument of light. Therefore, when a pregnancy is unexpectedly terminated, Emmanuel invites us to look beyond the pain, to see with the eyes of the soul. The departed spirit hasn't disappeared, just needed more time. It is being prepared, cared for, and guided toward a new beginning. Stay with me, because in the next few words, you will understand how this return happens, how the spiritual plane welcomes these spirits, and what signs may indicate that the reunion is closer than you imagine. Do you believe that the love between parents and children can transcend time, death, and even oblivion? That even when a baby leaves too soon, this sacred bond lives on, pulsing somewhere between heaven and earth? Emmanuel, the wise spirit who accompanied Chico Xavier, teaches us that true love is never lost. It simply transforms, adapts, and finds its way back at the right time. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to hear now may completely change the way you view separation, pain, and the spiritual reunion between souls bound by love. According to Emmanuel, death is not an end, but a pause, a necessary pause within God's perfect plan. When a baby departs, the human sensation is one of irreparable loss, the empty crib, the silence of the house, the dream that seemed interrupted. But from a spiritual perspective, this moment is merely the interval between two chapters of the same love story. No true bond is undone. No connection built on the purest feeling, maternal and paternal love, dissolve into oblivion. These bonds are eternal, and life, with all its wisdom, finds the right time to unite them again. Emmanuel reveals that the baby spirit, upon returning to the spiritual plane, is welcomed with tenderness and care. He understands the importance of that brief encounter and understands that, though it was short-lived, the bond with his parents was profoundly transformative. What's more, this spirit, in most cases, returns. It returns when everyone is ready, when the parents' hearts have matured enough to receive that same love again. Now, in a new opportunity for coexistence and mutual growth, it is the reunion of souls who never stop loving each other. Have you ever felt like you knew someone at first sight? That the love for a child, even a newborn, was inexplicably familiar, as if the bond had existed for centuries? Emmanuel explains that this soul recognition is no coincidence. It's the subtle memory of past lives, of promised reunions, of eternal bonds that grow stronger with each experience. When a baby returns in a new incarnation, it brings with it the vibration of that interrupted love, the chance to continue the story that previously had to be paused. What you'll discover now may surprise you. Emmanuel teaches that nothing is lost in divine laws. Every pain, every longing, every tear shed has a greater purpose. Suffering that seems meaningless is often the seed of spiritual transformation. Parents who face the premature death of a child develop a greater sensitivity to faith, compassion, and hope. They become more aware of the presence of the spiritual world, more open to the idea that life doesn't end with death. It merely changes form. And it is in this process that the true mission of those who remain emerges. Emmanuel says that the pain of separation can be transformed into light when experienced with faith. When the heart, even wounded, can trust in divine designs, something extraordinary happens. The soul is elevated, spirit is strengthened, and the love that seemed distant becomes even more present. Because love doesn't need a body to exist. It vibrates on the spiritual plane, nourishes invisible connections, and prepares the ground for a new encounter. Have you ever noticed how life sometimes seems to give us back what we've lost, but in a different way? Emmanuel called these providential reunions, moments when spirituality shows us that what is true is never lost. That even the most painful goodbye can actually be a "see you later." Stay with me, because in the next few words, you will understand how these reunions happen, how souls recognize each other through reincarnations, and how love, this divine bond, continues to guide each of us, even when everything seems to have ended. And perhaps, upon hearing all this, something inside you stirred, perhaps a memory, a longing, an understanding that previously seemed distant. Emmanuel said that when the soul listens to spiritual truth with an open heart, something changes not externally but internally. It's as if pain finds new meaning, as if the love that seemed lost becomes a bridge between worlds. And that's why talking about these topics is so important, because every word shared here has the power to comfort someone, to light a small flame of hope in those who are silent, searching for answers. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below with what resonated most with you so far. Share your experience, your opinion, or even the story that brought you to this video. Sometimes your story is exactly what someone else needs to read, to feel welcomed, understood, and empowered. This space is more than a channel, it's a meeting place for souls seeking light, understanding, and faith. And if you feel that this kind of content is good for you, that it brings peace to your heart, don't forget to like it. It may seem simple, but each like helps Emmanuel's message. Spiritual reflections and words of comfort reach more people who need solace and spiritual clarity right now. Your gesture is powerful. It's what keeps alive the chain of light we're building together here. And, of course, if you want to continue walking with me through these stories, lessons, and messages from beyond, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. This way you won't miss any new content, and we'll continue side by side on this journey of spiritual discovery, always guided by the wisdom of Emmanuel's teachings and the love that unites all souls. Because, in the end, that's what connects us, the desire to understand, to feel, and to continue believing that nothing is by chance, not even the moment you arrived here. Stay with me, because the following message will show you, in an even deeper way, how the reunion of souls happens and why love, even when it seems distant, remains the strongest link between Earth and the spiritual realm. Have you ever wondered why some babies leave before they even live? Why does life begin and end so quickly? It's a question that spans time and religion, echoing in the silence of hospitals, in the prayers of inconsolable mothers, and in the sleepless nights of parents searching for answers. Sometimes life seems cruelly brief, like a flame that barely had time to ignite before extinguishing. But what if this flame, however small it may seem, has accomplished exactly what it was created for? What if what we call the end is, in fact, an essential part of a journey that doesn't end here? Emmanuel, through the words "psychography" by Chico Xavier, offered one of the most profound and comforting explanations about this mystery of the soul. For him, no birth is accidental. No life, however short, happens outside of divine purpose. Even when a baby breathes for a few minutes or lives only a few days, there is a spiritual reason behind it, a reason that, though invisible to human eyes, speaks directly to the heart of eternity. Often, these spirits come into the world simply to readjust karmic bonds, redeem broken affections, or alleviate debts from previous existences. It's a silent reunion, an agreement made long before conception, where love and the need for evolution intertwine. The brief contact with matter, the simple opportunity to feel the warmth of the physical body, is enough to complete a cycle of learning, liberation, and reunion. It's a short passage, yes, but deeply meaningful both for the returning spirit and for those who welcome it, even if only for a moment. Imagine for a moment that the soul, before reincarnating, understands the entire plan. It knows what needs to be adjusted, who it needs to meet again, what it needs to teach and learn. And when this spirit accepts such a brief existence, it does so with a courage that defies human comprehension. Because for the spiritual realm, the length of life is not measured in years, but in experiences, in vibrations, in impact. Sometimes a simple birth completely transforms a family's life, wakens forgotten feelings, renews faith, or changes the course of a story. And in that instant, the purpose is fulfilled. But understanding this requires a profound shift in mindset. The rational mind seeks logic, immediate justice, concrete explanations. The soul, however, seeks meaning, purpose, significance. This is where Emmanuel's teaching becomes so transformative. He invites us to see the spiritual underbelly of life. Behind pain, there are revelations. Behind absence, there is a new beginning. Behind what seems unfair, there is love in its purest form, the kind that accepts, understands, and trusts in God's timing. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because when we begin to understand the true role of these brief existences, something changes within us. Suffering gives way to reflection, anger transforms into understanding, and the void begins to fill with a different kind of peace, one that comes from the recognition that nothing is out of place. Everything, absolutely everything, has a purpose that fits into a much greater plan. Emmanuel said that every soul carries within itself a destiny of light, and that even the most painful passages are steps on this path of ascension. When a baby departs early, it doesn't disappear. It simply returns to its spiritual home with its mission accomplished, carrying with it the energy of the love it received and leaving behind a seed of transformation. It's difficult to accept this when the pain is still raw, but gradually consciousness expands, and we begin to understand that these little spirits are messengers of hope, not loss. They come to remind us that true life is not limited to matter, that the soul's time is not measured in days, but in eternities, that even a brief goodbye can contain an entire universe of learning and meaning. And it is in this realization that spiritual healing is born, the relief that comes not from answers, but from the profound understanding that everything is part of a larger journey, a journey of reunions and evolution. What once seemed like a punishment begins to reveal itself as a loving choice between souls committed to mutual growth. Sometimes the baby who leaves early is the same spirit who, in another life, was an important link, a companion on the journey, someone who returns only to complete an interrupted cycle. And when this happens, the impact is so powerful that it forever alters the family's view of existence. Pain transforms into faith, absence into subtle presence, mourning into spiritual awakening over time. The mind quiets, and the heart begins to understand what reason could never explain. It's not about forgetting, but about understanding. It's not about erasing longing, but allowing it to transform into a bond of love that endures. Because deep down, life is never lost, it just changes form. And when we see it from this perspective, we realize that the true miracle isn't how long someone lives, but how much love they leave behind while they're here. Comment there. That makes sense to me. According to Emmanuel, nothing happens without a greater purpose. No life is thrown into the world by chance. No birth is the result of mere biological chance. There is something deeper behind each arrival into the world, a spiritual truth that transcends human understanding and reveals how much each existence, however brief, is part of a perfectly designed plan. Emmanuel said that the universe is governed by laws of balance, where each soul occupies the exact place it needs to be to evolve, learn, and repair what was left unfinished. Even a baby who breathes for only a few moments fulfills a mission as significant as that of someone who lives 100 years. Because, in divine logic, the value of life is not measured in time, but in transformation. These little spirits who come and go so quickly are often silent messengers of readjustment and rapprochement. Even before incarnating, they accept with love and courage. It's a task that demands detachment, offering those who remain an opportunity for spiritual growth. Sometimes, the simple act of being born and being welcomed by their parents already fulfills a profound karmic purpose, ending old cycles and releasing energies trapped in the past. These are reunions planned on invisible planes, where every tear, every gesture, and every emotion has meaning. Emmanuel shows us that, in spirituality, nothing is wasted, not pain, not love, not a farewell. Everything has a purpose. Everything is a learning experience, and it is precisely from this perspective that pain begins to transform. When we understand that life and death are part of the same evolutionary process, suffering ceases to be punishment and becomes understanding. The soul is not a victim of circumstances, but an eternal traveler, undergoing experiences that refine it and bring it closer to the light. Emmanuel taught that reincarnations are not punishments, but sacred opportunities for readjustment and progress. Sometimes, the spirit needs only a brief contact with matter to complete the cycle that was left incomplete. Other times, it comes to awaken in those who love it a new consciousness, a higher perspective on life, faith, and the meaning of existence. When a mother feels immense love for a newborn baby and then has to say goodbye, something powerful happens. The bond that seemed broken actually strengthens on another plane. Love becomes a bridge, feeling transforms into light. And both mother and spirit follow different paths, yet energetically connected. Emmanuel said that true love is never lost, it merely changes frequency. It transforms into a silent force, sustaining the souls involved until their reunion in due time. And in this reunion, nothing remains but gratitude and learning. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this insight isn't just a comfort to those who suffer. It's also an invitation to rethink how we view our own journey. How many times have you questioned the meaning of your pain, your losses, your decisions? Perhaps everything you called injustice was actually a movement of spiritual realignment. Life constantly presents us with experiences that awaken, heal, and reposition our consciousness. Emmanuel speaks of the great web of readjustments, where we are all interconnected, and each gesture has an invisible impact on many other destinies. When a spirit decides to reincarnate, even for a moment, they participate in this web of balance, offering and receiving love, repairing what was left unfinished. This hidden truth shows us that chance doesn't exist. What exists is a universe driven by intelligence and compassion. Sometimes suffering comes as a messenger of transformation. The more we try to resist it, the harder it becomes to learn. But when we accept with an open heart what life is trying to teach us, something lights up within us. It's as if the pieces finally begin to fit together. And then we realize that every soul that passes through us, even for an instant, leaves an eternal mark. Emmanuel teaches us that birth and death are merely different doors on the same path. No spirit arrives or departs without reason. Those who are born and leave quickly are often those who had already completed much of their journey in other lives and simply needed to close a specific cycle. Others return only to soothe the heart of someone left behind, to teach forgiveness, awaken compassion, or strengthen unconditional love. This brief physical contact is, therefore, only the visible tip of a spiritual link that spans centuries. And when we look at this with an awakened mindset, we understand that life is not a straight line, but a spiral of experiences that repeat themselves until consciousness grasps its true essence. Every loss, every reunion, every pain is part of a greater plan that seeks not punishment, but evolution. This is the most liberating revelation of Emmanuel's teaching. No one suffers in vain. No one is born in vain. No one departs in vain. Everything is inserted into a purpose of growth and light. Behind the scenes of life, there is a constant movement of souls that attract, separate, and reunite in a cycle of love and continuous learning. The spirit that departs early does not disappear, it simply returns to its origin, leaving a trail of love that continues to act in the invisible. And those who remain, even shrouded in pain, are being prepared for a new level of understanding, an awakening that completely transforms the way they view existence. When we can feel this with our hearts, something changes forever. We stop seeing death as an end and begin to see it as a passage. And life, instead of being a race against time, becomes a journey of consciousness. Emmanuel, with his serene wisdom, shows us that the soul is eternal, and that every experience even the most painful carries within it the seed of liberation. Spiritual truth is simple. but it requires courage to live. Everything has meaning, even when we don't yet understand it. And the day this understanding dawns, pain begins to transform into faith, fear into serenity, and emptiness into presence. Because deep down, love is the only bond that never breaks. Right there, I'm on this journey too. But Emmanuel also explains that there are cases in which the spirit, upon realizing the weight of the new incarnation, retreats. This is not an act of weakness, but rather an acknowledgement of one's own limits. The premature return to the spiritual plane occurs when the spirit, upon feeling the impact of matter and the challenge of the approaching physical life, realizes that it is not yet ready. And this, according to Emmanuel, is more common than one might imagine. There are silent stories that never reach their telling, lives that never reach completion in the earthly world, but which behind the scenes in the spirit carry immense meaning. Each attempt, even if it seems interrupted, is part of a process of maturation of the soul, a journey that demands courage, dedication, and above all, love. Emmanuel describes that in these cases, the spirit is supported from the very first moment by the mentors who accompany it. These guides, full of wisdom and compassion, do not judge, reprimand, or condemn. They welcome. Because in the spiritual realm, there is no such thing as error as we understand it here. There is only learning. Each setback is a lesson. Each surrender is a new preparation. And so the soul grows stronger, little by little, until it meets the necessary conditions to begin again. There is no rush in God's timing. Everything happens at the exact moment it should. This hidden truth of reincarnation brings profound comfort. It shows us that life is not a rigid path where only spiritual success is possible. It is a cyclical journey, full of trials, adjustments, and comings and goings. The spirit is like a traveler who, before undertaking a difficult journey, assesses the path, prepares, and, if necessary, returns to strengthen itself. No soul is punished for this, because divine love is infinitely patient. And when the right moment finally arrives, that spirit returns, more aware, more prepared, and more willing to face the experience that previously frightened it. Emmanuel said that these early returns to the UHC's spiritual plane are surrounded by tenderness and care. The spirit is welcomed by spiritual friends, often the same ones who accompanied them on their previous attempt. There are conversations, guidance, and reflections. They review the scenes of their unfinished experience, understand what made them retreat, and recognize the fears they still need to overcome. And, in the silence of learning, they begin to rebalance themselves. Those who return early are not defeated, but learners in progress, a being rebuilding themselves from within, finding the strength to move forward toward their own evolution. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this understanding completely changes the way we view life and death. It shows us that nothing is truly interrupted. Everything continues, everything adjusts. When a pregnancy doesn't reach term, or when a baby dies before birth, there's spiritual work happening behind the scenes, a work of healing, rebalancing, and transformation. Emmanuel explains that often the reincarnating spirit feels the earth's call and approaches, but upon contact with the density of matter, realizes it can't yet sustain that vibration, so it returns. And this return isn't a failure, but a planned pause. Parents, even without realizing it, play a vital role in this process. They are the ones who, through love, provide the energetic field that welcomes the spirit during the time it remains connected to the pregnancy. Even if this time is short, it fulfills a sacred role. It's as if a link is formed between worlds, the spiritual and the material, allowing for profound exchanges of energy, forgiveness, and rapprochement. Sometimes that spirit returns simply to experience the sensation of love. It's the subtle touch of acceptance, the vibration of affection. And once this experience is lived, it departs in peace, carrying with it the luminous memory of having been loved. This is one of the most beautiful revelations of Emmanuel's teachings. Love is never in vain. No pregnancy is wasted. Even if the birth doesn't happen physically, it is fulfilled spiritually. There's a vibrational connection that remains alive, shaping destinies and strengthening hearts. The spirit that retreats does not abandon the bonds it has formed. It preserves them, knowing that, at some point, they will meet again under different circumstances. Divine timing is perfect, and love eternal. It's interesting to note how this perspective invites us to change our mindset about suffering. What once seemed unfair, cruel, or meaningless becomes understood as part of a larger spiritual architecture. Life, when viewed from within the soul, ceases to be merely a succession of events and reveals itself as a journey of conscious evolution. Nothing is lost. Everything is transformed. And even what we call death before its time is, in fact, a stage carefully guided by the laws of eternal life. Emmanuel, with his serenity and wisdom, reminds us that human suffering arises from a resistance to accepting what is greater than ourselves. When we learn to trust, the pain begins to soften. The heart understands that there are invisible purposes at work, and fear gives way to faith. This is the true meaning of spiritual transformation, when we stop reacting only with emotion and begin to perceive the meaning behind each event. Loss becomes learning, doubt transforms into understanding, longing becomes conscious love. And if you think about it, this logic also applies to all areas of life. How many times have you backed down from something that seemed too big? A project, a relationship, an important decision. Sometimes retreating isn't giving up its preparation. The soul works the same way. When it doesn't yet have enough structure to sustain an experience, it returns to strengthen itself. This is how we mature. The difference is that, on the spiritual plane, this process is conducted with much more clarity and love. This vision breaks down fear and opens space for gratitude. Gratitude for every experience, even those that are incomplete. Gratitude for every soul that has crossed our path, even if only for a moment. Gratitude for understanding that everything has its right time and that the universe never makes mistakes in its decisions. Emmanuel invites us to look at life with this broader mindset, where each moment is part of a greater journey that leads us back to the light. And when you start seeing things this way, your heart changes. You begin to feel that what truly matters isn't how long someone lived, but the impact their presence left. And at that point, even silence has a voice. Even absence teaches. Because love, when it's true, doesn't need time to exist. It simply is. Comment there. That makes sense to me. Emmanuel teaches that the love between parents and children is never lost. That this bond, built in eternity, survives distance, pain, and even death. When a baby dies before it lives, what appears to be a painful end is, in fact, just a pause gap between reunions. Nothing is lost in divine law, and each soul follows its own path, guided by purposes that often lie beyond our human comprehension. Emmanuel reveals that these spiritual bonds intertwine in successive existences, like invisible threads that reunite at the right time in the ideal scenario. When everyone is ready to experience what destiny has in store, that's why reunion isn't a hypothesis, it's a certainty. The spirit of the departed baby returns, more mature, more prepared to fulfill its mission and continue what was left unfinished. Sometimes it returns as a son again, strengthening the bond that began before. Other times it returns in a different role: a grandson, nephew, a friend, someone who crosses the family's path unexpectedly, but with a connection that seems ancient. And it is ancient because it comes from other lives, from commitments that span time and are renewed in each cycle of learning. This is the hidden truth Emmanuel brings to light. Love is indestructible. It can change form, it can express itself in different ways, but it never disappears. And when we understand this, pain begins to transform. Absence ceases to be a void and becomes a silent reminder that there is something greater guiding us. The spiritual journey is made of comings and goings, of farewells and reunions, of decisions the soul makes even before birth. Nothing is by chance, not even loss. Each experience has a profound impact on the evolution of those who remain and the preparation of those who depart. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding the mission of those who remain is as important as understanding the destiny of those who depart. Emmanuel said that when a spirit returns to the spiritual plane prematurely, they leave a trail of learning for those left behind. It's not a punishment, but a wake-up call. Parents, family members, and loved ones are invited to reflect, to reconnect with the divine, to rethink the meaning of life. It's a movement of inner transformation that arises from suffering, but blossoms into wisdom. Grief, when experienced with faith, becomes a bridge to the expansion of consciousness. How often does pain force us to look within? The loss of a child, however devastating, opens spiritual doors that might never have been opened otherwise. Emmanuel affirms that many souls can only break old structures and evolve. When they face situations that defy the logic of material life, it is at this point that faith ceases to be theory and becomes lived experience. The torn heart finds strength it never knew it possessed. A new mindset emerges, more spiritual, more compassionate, more alert to invisible truths. And it's interesting to observe how this transformation is reflected in everyday decisions. Parents who lose a baby often develop a greater sensitivity, a deeper empathy for the pain of others. Some dedicate their lives to helping other families, others begin to see life more clearly, understanding that life is brief and precious. Loss, which seemed like an incurable wound, becomes a seed of light, a constant reminder that love is the only force capable of crossing any barrier. Behind the scenes in the spirit world, Emmanuel describes a continuous process of work between the departed spirit and those who remain. Even though we cannot see it, a silent, energetic exchange is taking place. The baby who has returned to the spiritual plane often accompanies their parents, inspiring them, protecting them, and helping them regain serenity. The bond remains active, vibrating in another dimension. This is why so many mothers report feeling their children's presence, noticing subtle signs, a dream, a shiver, a feeling of inexplicable affection. These manifestations are not illusions. They are spiritual reminders that love has not been interrupted, only transformed, and this realization changes everything. When our gaze opens to the invisible, pain finds purpose. Emmanuel teaches us that, before divine laws, nothing is unfair, only misunderstood. The time we spend on earth is just a fragment of a much larger story. True birth and true death occur within the soul, not the body. When we accept this, we begin to live differently with more surrender, more trust, more gratitude. Life ceases to be a sequence of losses and becomes a journey of rediscovery. There's a beautiful moment when Emmanuel says that. God never separates hearts that truly love each other. He only repositions them so they learn what they still need to learn. This is the essence of divine law, evolution through love. The baby who died early wasn't taken away. He was prepared. The parents who remained weren't abandoned. They were chosen. Each one fulfills a specific role within this perfect spiritual mechanism, where everything happens for a greater reason, and when we understand this, something Emmanuel called enlightened peace emerges. It is not the absence of pain, but the presence of understanding. It is the moment when the soul, tired of fighting the inevitable, surrenders to divine wisdom and finds serenity. Faith ceases to be an idea and becomes a real force that sustains, consoles, and guides. Suffering gives way to acceptance, and acceptance makes room for hope. Nothing, absolutely nothing, is wasted in the divine plan. Every tear has a purpose. Every goodbye holds a promise. Every love temporarily interrupted will blossom again when the time is right. And when that reunion happens, whether in this life or another, everything that once seemed like pain will be understood as part of a grand plan of mutual learning. Emmanuel said that true love knows no goodbyes, only postponed reunions. Therefore, when a baby leaves, it's not the end. It's just the beginning of a new journey, guided by God and supported by light. This understanding doesn't eliminate longing, but it transforms the way we experience it. Longing ceases to be a wound and becomes a bridge, a link between dimensions, a living reminder that love is the force that unites heaven and earth. The mission of those who remain is to learn to trust. Even without understanding, it's to keep our hearts open, even when they seem shattered. It's to allow pain to become transformation, loss to become purpose, and love to continue guiding all decisions. Because deep down, what Emmanuel teaches us is that love doesn't die, it merely changes form. Waiting for the right moment to manifest itself again? Right there, I'm on this journey too, if you've made it this far. It's because this topic truly touched your heart, and that makes all the difference. If this content brought you any reflection, comfort, or simply sparked your curiosity, please leave a comment below saying something like, "I'm with you until the end," or "This message was for me." It's incredible to see that we're connected on this journey, exchanging experiences and feelings. And your participation makes this space even more vibrant and welcoming. If you found value in this video, please like it to mark this moment of connection, and also to help more people who need this reflection find this content. Each gesture helps keep this channel active and full of messages that help us see beyond what meets the eye. And if you want to continue immersing yourself in this universe of spiritual learning and revelations, subscribe to the channel. The idea here is to walk together, always with lightness, empathy, and that touch of wisdom that inspires us to look at life differently. There's a video here that complements this topic, and it will delve even deeper into this vision of life, the soul, and the bonds that are never lost. Click and stay with me there, because the journey doesn't end. Here it only transforms. And each stage reveals new perspectives on love, faith, and spiritual truth.